Tales from the streets.
Welcome back to Street Tales. Joe, my brother, my friend, I'm excited to spend this time with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit offline, and I'll just kind of preempt it. This is not going to be a recap of the first time you were on. It'll be referenced throughout the episode, and there'll be a link in the description for the first episode. But we talked again before, and we just recorded with Dave Tarbox, some other individuals that are the OGs of Street Tales podcast, where we were just doing audio. And what I was left with after that, the first episode, is like, we captured your past, your kind of your history, some of those darker moments. I really wanted to flesh out life after that. And so I appreciate your time. And that's going to be what we're doing in episode 2. So I'm excited to get into it.
Awesome.
All right. So first question, just to kind of get it started. So for someone who heard the first episode, again, I'm not asking you to recap the whole thing. You laid out a bunch of steps. You laid out a bunch of things that you were doing. But it's like, how do you actually do that? How could you kind of summarize those steps, or that mentality that you had?
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe
if
ask
we're
a lot.
no, it's it's one of those things, right? Some of it's just acquired over time. Like, it's not like I drew a hard line in the sand and
Yeah.
like automatically had all these new tools in my tool belt to
Yeah.
help me either build a business or help me navigate through my own addictions. I think a lot of times it just comes with a lot of self-reflection. And I think like that is one thing I'm starting to like really also kind of preach a lot with people that I work with, or I'm lucky enough to be on either different boards or work with different organizations that allow me to like help come to them from a consultant standpoint and just kind of tell my
Yeah.
story and help other young leaders who are navigating through a bunch of different things. And yesterday I actually had a presentation on goal setting, which seems to be like a big one that like, it's kind of fun because it becomes like a little bit of your identity, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I told them is like, first and foremost, you've got to stop worrying about things that you can't control. And I can't, like, I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back in time and fix all these problems that I created for myself. And I think sometimes when you're somebody who's navigating out of a rocky past, it's hard to just draw a hard line because you have these emotions that are attached to whatever damage you caused. But
Yeah.
I think it was kind of one day, I was like really coming out of like the addiction. And as I started to feel successful, like that
Okay.
emotion of feeling successful. Now, it's not the same success I have today, but it was success in little moments, right? So it was success of, okay, I no longer am an actual addict, right? Like I don't have that urge to
Yeah.
do something like physically harmful to myself. I might have the addictive personality to have good work ethic or work hard in the gym or be a good parent, but I didn't have that harmful addiction pattern anymore.
Yeah.
And so like just tying a little bit of a like emotion to things you can't control
Yeah.
really sets people off into the wrong path. And so I think that was step one for me, was like when I kind of realized I had a lot more control and power in what was going to happen to me in the future. I think that's when things really started to change.
Yeah. And again, the only thing about doing these things virtual and stuff is like people don't get a good scope of who you are, what you look like. The dude is a giant, built like a Greek god. Yeah, brother. You've posted pictures that I've seen, or you showed me some, but I've also seen them on, Instagram or whatever. And I'm like, that doesn't even look like you, dude. Like, I'm like, who is that guy that you're posting? You're like, that was me. I was like, no, bro,
Yeah.
no. I don't even know who that guy is.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and actually
wild.
that's actually a good thing to bring up, because again, if somebody listened to past podcast, so I beat the drug addiction, but like got addicted to food at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that was an emotional draw. I basically just, whenever I was depressed, I would eat, or I would be working so many hours because work became somewhat of a positive addiction, but I was so passionate about working I wouldn't eat through the day. You
Yeah.
work like 12 hours and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I need food to survive. And you just stuff your face with the fastest food possible, which is not the healthiest. And so I think, yeah, just like anything else, right? I was emotionally eating to just like kind of cope with those other things. Or even when work was stressful, I would just eat.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, one day I woke up and I'm like, wow, look at me. Like, I'm no longer a drug addict. I'm decently successful at work. And
Yeah.
now I'm fat, you know? It became like something else, you know? It was kind of funny because
Yeah.
I remember um, I was in like a conference room. We had this giant conference room. It was at the second parking company that I worked with. And there's a conference room, bunch of good leaders, guys that, you know, we are all competitive with each other. And I made this comment that I was like, oh yeah, I'm thinking I'm thinking I should start running. And I'm like 400 pounds. And the guy was like, he's like, how fast do you think you can run? Like a mile. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I can get under 10 minutes. He's like, I bet you can. Like,
Wow.
he's like, I don't, I,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't see it, you know? And I was like, okay, all right, whatever. And I didn't tell him, but then, you know, of course, the next time I went to go work out, I was like, let me try this. And oh my God, I think I walked like a 16 or 18-minute mile. Like
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Yeah.
it was bad. And so just competitive spirit sets in, right? At that point
Oh
in
yeah.
time. And then it's like, it's just like anything else. I go, okay, like what can I control? I can control the food that's going into me. I can control,
Yeah.
you know, I'm okay. I can't run a 10-minute mile, but I can control trying to beat my previous time by 20 or 30 seconds. I can control that.
Yeah.
And, you know, just setting kind of milestones. And eventually, lo and behold, I end up losing 150 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And huge accomplishment,
Yeah.
of course. Don't want to short sell it.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one of those things where I think a lot of us, again, we focus on things we can't control. And it's so if at that point in time I had set out to say I'm going to lose 150 pounds, I bet you I actually wouldn't have done it. So I more so wanted to focus on, again, what could I control? I can't control whether or not I'm going to lose 150 pounds. So that wasn't the goal. It was really about focusing on my systems. Okay, I know I'm going to eat every day. I know I'm going to eat 3 to 4 times in the day if I want to speed up my metabolism. What are those foods going to be? Am I going to bring them with me? Am I going to go buy them? And when am I going to schedule to go buy them? Like, you know, there's all these other kind of micro goals that come with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just one of those, again, it goes back to an emotion, like focus on what you can control.
Mo, real
You
quick,
know,
I'm starting to realize a lot of correlation between the addiction side, but also law enforcement. Like, listen to what he said, like,
mhm.
you know, work and
Yeah.
stress and depression and eating and the hours. And Joe, real quick, we didn't talk about this before. I walked into the field office one day in Hillsboro, and one of the lieutenants was like, Martin, he was like, your buttons are in like 26, which means like emergency status because my uniform was so tight, like the buttons were pulling away. And I was like, I didn't even realize. I was like, "Oh my god, I've gotten that big, and it's only been like a year." But anyway, I hear what you're saying. Sorry, Mo. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna just comment on the fact the last kind of recap episodes we've been doing, that two things that I find that are very similar with both of these individuals is mindset and perspective. And
Yeah.
when he's talking about tying your emotions from uncontrollable things to controllable things, it's
Yeah.
the perspective of how you're going to look at your life, how you're viewing it at that particular moment. And
Yeah.
I think that lends to people need to understand that yes, once you beat the addiction, like we were saying the other day, it's like, oh, I beat addiction, and then there was a horse that rode up. I got on it. I grabbed my
Yeah. Yeah.
princess. We rode off into a castle, and everything was happily ever after. When it's not really that way, that perspective change takes time, it takes focus, it takes energy, it takes sacrifice. So with you, it kind of breaking it down into those feeling successful in moments, I think that is something that people let me ask you, do you think that that would be something that someone in a place like that could focus on in order to make that perspective shift?
Yeah, certainly. Because I think the other thing is also you're not alone in the process. Like you really do.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I look at like this kind of the stages of my life, like I also have to realize that a lot of things that have made me successful was my drive or my ambition or my perspective, but also sometimes the people that were around me during that period of time and the accountability. Right.
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
sometimes I would have the wrong mindset and it would take somebody else to kind of call that out and just being open. I think
Yeah.
the power of vulnerability is a superpower that a lot of people, you know, they neglect. And
For sure.
we're even the most successful people You know, I mean, obviously there's successful people that have ego and are arrogant about it, but for the most part, I think when you talk to different individuals who've reached any goal, like they will tell you, like they have to be vulnerable in that because it's a learning process. It doesn't just yeah, you're right. You don't just wake up one day and have all of this, you know.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah.
you really do have to have people and influences that are outside as well.
Real quick, this wasn't even on there, but vulnerability. It's
Yeah.
something I was thinking about because, well, Mo, maybe you can help me, but especially as a man, to make yourself vulnerable, either admitting that you're wrong or vulnerable in the sense like, I want to know what you know, or, whatever, to emulate that kind of a thing. And Joe, you speak for yourself. I won't speak for you. That has been, I'm 42 now. It is still hard for me to do. I am very resistant. I'm very walls. Like as soon as I feel myself doing that, I mean, and again, I'm not talking about like vulnerability with your wife or your children. That's not what I mean. But like to admit that you're doing something wrong and to let somebody else, for me, especially another man, like coach or
Yeah.
correct, bro, that is hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, I don't even know. I feel like for men and women, like everyone always tries to draw a line. Like men have it much harder to be vulnerable, but I really think it's equal because I think for men, we are vulnerable expressing our feelings to other men because we respect them, right? A lot of
Yeah.
times the men that you have in your life, you respect them so much. You don't want them to look at you a different way.
Yeah.
But once you do find good friends that you can be vulnerable with, that you know that they're not going to judge you based off of the circumstance of the situation, they overall care about your well-being. And we're also realizing most people go through the same kind of vulnerable experiences throughout. Like every person I've ever talked to who's been in a long relationship has had relationship issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, it's kind of like the inevitable, right? It's just being comfortable talking about that. I think for women, being vulnerable sometimes is easier when they're talking with men because the assumption is men look at women as more vulnerable, right? Women being vulnerable to other women, I think is also very challenging because there's again, similar type of perspective that us men have with each other where women, they respect each other in a different kind of way. And again, being vulnerable with another woman, it's like, I feel like women have smaller friend groups than men. I always thought men, and I don't know,
Yeah.
Mo, you'll be the expert on this, but I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
men actually have a bigger friend group than they think. And women are a little bit more selective on those type of things. But
Well,
I would agree in the respect of we will have girls that we'll hang out with and do, but the ones that we're going to be truly vulnerable with are usually very limited because women are judgmental. We are really hard on each other. And the ones that aren't judgmental, like you said, Joe, I respect this person. I don't want them to think poorly of me the
Yeah.
same way. So it takes some time to kind of, I know for me, it takes time for me to kind of break down those walls for people to fully know. I will tell you too, I have a lot of male friends, which I'm more comfortable with, I think, for the vulnerability aspect of it too. So kind of funny that you bring that up, but I do agree with like that is something when he was paralleling what you're saying to law enforcement as well. That's probably a huge problem within law enforcement because there
Oh, yeah.
is no vulnerability. There's these type A, you got to be tough, and that goes male or female. We have a picture of what it's supposed to look like. And so therefore, when struggles come up with having accountability, with saying, hey man, I think you're slipping, people don't say that because it's constant walls. So it's just super interesting that yours is being born out of addiction, but I think this applies to life for people.
yeah. I also think like for me, it's helped me in business. So not necessarily just from like being vulnerable and having these kind of like, I don't know, conversations with people that work with me or that are my friends, but also from like an employee standpoint, hiring people, relating to, people that I might be doing business with in the future. I shared a story with Maria. Maria's my girlfriend. And it was like a text message that I was having back and forth with who he's actually now my godfather. This is like a kind of a funny story to share, but I go to interview this guy one day, and normally I don't interview people. It's usually the HR department is interviewing them. But at the end of the day, they were busy. There was something going on. I had like a light schedule and I was like, I'll go interview this guy. Right. So I go in to do an interview and this guy is applying for a valet position. And I get in the room and this guy is a big dude like me. And he has this resume that I'm staring at. And I was just like, oh my God, like, You have all this manager experience. You worked at a casino. You have all this stuff that's on here. Why are you
Yeah.
applying for an overnight valet position?" And he paused for a second, and then he became vulnerable. And he said, "I'm going to be honest with you. I got into a little trouble. I made a mistake. I got in a road rage incident, and I got in a physical fight with someone, and I got arrested. And it's on my record now. And I lost my job at the casino as a result of that. And I can't find a job. Nobody wants. This just happened to me. Nobody wants to hire me because I have a conviction on, and I gotta pay the bills. So I'm trying and hoping. I'm applying to places that ideally will hire me." And he's like, "And honestly, I'm applying for an overnight position so I can interview for more jobs during the day." Right. So he
Yeah.
full perspective.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, I had to have a little bit of reflection on my life and where I've been and how many times somebody has reached back and extended their hand to me and pulled me up along with them. And I said, "Listen, I don't know what it is. I don't normally do interviews. And yet somehow here I am
Yeah.
doing your interview." I have had very similar situations in my life that I've ended up incarcerated, and somebody has blessed me and given me an opportunity and let me be the person that I am. And I said, "I have this manager position that I think you'd be great for. And if you want to interview for it, I
Wow.
can interview you for that. And, um, and we'll go from there." And he was just like taken back, and I could see the emotion weigh on him. Right. And I said, "If right now, because of what you're feeling, is not the right time for us to do this interview," I was like, "We can reschedule it. We can go do lunch, just get to know each other a little bit more." That's how I'd probably prefer to interview my managers. And we ended up doing that. And I ended up hiring the guy. He ended up running a location for me for roughly 2 years, got promoted, ended up helping us do some openings. And maybe three years in or so, he got a great opportunity presented to him in a different industry. And it was kind of one of those too hard to pass ups, but
Yeah.
his life had got back on track. It had rechanged. It had everything, had kind of resurfaced where it needed to be. And he took that opportunity, and we stayed good friends. And I was going through a process to get baptized. And my original sponsor, unfortunately, had to back out. And I needed somebody who was a practicing Catholic, and I knew he was. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, he was just like, "Absolutely." And so now the guy's my godfather. But it,
So
it
that's a
all,
wild story.
it
That's
is
a
a wild story,
wild
but
story.
it, it all started from two people being vulnerable. You,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And,
Huge.
and
Yeah.
it's one of those things that so I think those type of situations has allowed me to, like, I think about my past sometimes, and it is funny because when I meet people, they're like, "No way." And I'm like, "I swear to God,"
Yeah.
So some people will either see the pictures of me being 400 pounds, or
Yeah.
I'll tell them that I used to be an addict, and they'll be like, "No way. This just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense." You know what I mean? I'm like, "I get it. I understand, but that wasn't the person I was intended to be. It was just the circumstances that got me there, you know?"
That's so good. Mo, you see why I love this dude?
I
He
do.
just throws things out there. Not the person I intended to be. But we are going to
Well,
get back on track, but I just want to dwell for a second for people who just heard that, because that's the first time you've ever shared that with me as well. Here you are. I'm going to call you an executive just to leave your title out, but you're an executive. You're interviewing somebody for a ballet spot, which again, I'm not knocking anything.
no.
He's like, he couldn't find a job. He's clearly like, this is killing him. And you're like, "I understand your story. I want to give you a shot." And the next, well, I don't know how long, 2 years is great, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. But now you have this friendship that led to someone who, I guess Godfather's like a Catholic thing. But anyway, someone who
Yeah.
you're very close with, all from an interview spot from somebody who was going through a hard time. Like, that is
Yeah.
amazing, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm putting myself in his shoes a little bit. Like, it made me a little misty. I'm like, imagine the relief he
sure.
felt. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I might have a shot.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's crazy about it, and is I could probably tell a similar story like that
Yeah.
100 times. And I'm not trying to boast or exaggerate. Like I mean legitimately, I have been blessed with my life, my position, and the businesses that I either own or have ran. I have always tried to do my best to make things win-win,
Yeah.
and realize, like, who am I, honestly? like, who am I to judge someone for these things? And so it is very, very important to try to look at people for their character and who they are and what they're trying to do, right? Because some
Yeah.
people aren't at that stage. I literally could remember the same kind of scenarios where I'm like, I don't know that I'm qualified for these things, but I know I can be.
Yeah.
I know that I could work on those things. And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people who are going through hard times or have
Huge.
experienced bad things. But it's like, such a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean? To have a couple years of bad times when most of
Yeah.
us lived to be the age of 80. You know what I mean? You hear about it all the time
Yeah.
about people restarting. I'm only 37 and I feel like I've lived multiple lives, but I also like, it makes me excited to realize like how much more time I have left, you know, and
Yeah.
what I could do. And so I think for anybody, like, there's just so much time, you know what I mean? That's there.
No, for sure, Joe. You know what? I want to get us back on track, but that dude, it's so good. Mo, tie it in, Mo, because
Well,
I'm still processing a little bit. That's
I'm
so
looking
good.
at listening to what he's saying, and I have a question in respect going back. You said people typically tie emotions to the things they can't control, and
Yeah.
the emotions I'm thinking, and you can correct me, are the guilt of what they did, the anxiety of what's to come. Those kind of emotions get tied in there. So when they're starting to tackle real life now, when they've come out of whatever situation, whether it is addiction, whether it can be anything, I would say divorce or whatever's going on in their life, then do you think that's where they'll have that second guess voice, like you just said, maybe I'm not qualified for this, but
Yeah.
I can be? Does that cause though that pause for people at times? Is that the moment? And what do they do? What would your suggestion be for them to push past that pause?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way to kind of visualize it is there's an invisible stain on that individual and only they can see it.
Oh,
And to give like a very simple reference, this just happened to me. I was trying to get my global entry and I got denied.
Oh,
I got denied. And I got
yeah.
denied because of, I literally think I think I told you this,
Yeah.
Tyler. I don't know if I remember telling you the whole story or not, but I tried to go get my global entry. I applied,
Yeah.
my application was accepted. They sent me up to do the interview. I go to do the interview, and in my mind, okay, so Mo, to answer, in my mind, my past is in my past.
Yep.
So
right.
I'm not even thinking about arrest records. I mean, I read the rules and I knew
Right.
that they were going to ask about them. I knew that that was going to come up. So I'm not like blind to it. But when I get there, the guy stares at the paper and he's like, this doesn't make sense. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, well, this is saying grand theft, but you would have been 13 years old. And I was like, oh, no, that's true.
That's
He's like,
correct.
felony weapon charges. You were 16. I'm like, yep,
Mhm.
that's true. And
Mhm.
he was just like, and then he was just like criminal enterprise, 18. He's literally doing like,
Yeah.
he's looking at me and he's judging me in the normal conversation before he's reading these. Him
Yeah.
and I are
Right.
having perfect dialogue. He's judging me. I think I wore a suit that day. He's
Yeah.
looking at me as the individual in front of him, but he has a
Yeah.
piece of paper that has these knocks on it, right? And he told me, he said, well, listen, I'm going to be honest, like these don't have, so the ones where I wasn't 18, they should have been removed from my record by now.
Right.
But on his side, they don't show like a clearance, right? Because it's the Department of Justice, so they'll never go away. But he's like,
Mhm.
they don't show me that they were resolved, essentially. They don't show me how it
Right.
ended and cleared.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're going to have to go to the court. You're going to have to get these, bring them back. And then even then, you have one conviction from when you're 18 that they may or may not qualify you, right? And so he gave me the spiel, and I literally walked out of that room, and I had it happen to me for so many, many years. I walked out and I felt that invisible stain. And I had to
Yeah.
call my girlfriend and tell her. She's like, how'd it go? And I was like, I'm going to get denied for sure. And I did end up getting denied. And I felt the emotion at that point in time.
Yeah.
And
That's rough.
I had to correct myself. But the emotion I shared with her, I was like, this is just, it sucks because it's never going to
Yeah.
go there. It's never going to go away. And it lasted for maybe 5 minutes, like me being in that kind of like that slump. And I have enough, and I'll get back to like the answer fully to your question. I
No, I
luckily
understand.
have had enough time pass from that to where that low only lasted for a couple minutes. And I was able to go, well, again, there's nothing I can do about it. My past is my past. Like I can't get global entry. I'm going to get denied for it. All good. This does not dictate who I am or how I operate or what I'm capable of. It has no control over me. Now, if I wanted to go through a full battle and go get the court records and go back and do other interviews, sure. But you know what? For my mentality, it's just not worth it. I don't want to jump through all these hoops and do all these different things. It's fine. I can stand in line at TSA and every day it'll be a reminder to me, you know what I mean? Hey man, make sure you.
I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have done that silliness, you know?
Yeah.
But for other people who are really just fresh out of something, understanding that the time will come where you will make peace with it.
Right.
The time that it immediately happens, you kind of want to feel a little bit of that burden. You do, because the longer you feel the burden, a lot of times it's less likely that you're going to want to feel that again. Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes people will be like, well, I can't, if they go, oh, I can't control it. Like, it is what it is. Like, whatever, I'm just going to move on. They never really got to experience it. It's almost like, if you experience a death and move on too quick, like you never really actually dealt with the pain of it and the emotion of it and the recovery from it. So yeah, I think that's one way to look at it though, is like the stain on the shirt, and only you can see it, every time you look in the mirror. Another way to look at it is, and this comes from a book called Atomic Habits, which is one of my favorite books. And it is about goal setting and how to create good habits that allow you to accomplish goals. He basically says every action that you take is a vote for the type of person you want to be.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I can go back and just go, my vote for that day was I tried to get a global entry, which is, a good stature or a good thing to have if you're a frequent traveler. I was denied it, but my action of doing it is what was important for me, right? My action of attempting to do something to progress my life. And I know that's not like a huge progression for most people, is to get a little card that gets them through TSA faster. But it's just this topic, right? And so for somebody who's coming out of an experience where they did some type of harm or took a sidetrack on their life, whatever it is, then okay, well, again, draw the line and start making votes towards the right direction. And eventually you'll get far enough in the right direction where you can look back and all the votes that were in the wrong direction, like, really don't matter. You know what I mean? But it is a day by day thing.
No, for sure. Real quick, just a quick story, just to back up what you're saying. I have friends, but the specific friend, I've known him since I was 14. Who he was then and who he is now, I'm telling you, it's very similar to your point, what you were saying. And just recently, he called me. He's a husband, he's a father for over 20 years. He's very successful. Again, to compare who he was to who he is now, it's just so vastly different. Like it's unbelievable. And he calls me because he's like, I'm trying to volunteer at my kid's school and there's a background thing. Will they be able to get my records from when I was a juvenile? I was like, you need to be honest on that. He goes, but it's supposed to be like all these. I could see almost like, to your point, the invisible stain. I've never heard that term. I love what you're saying, but I'm like, we're 42 years old now. And he still is like dealing with stuff from 30 years ago, almost, whatever. And it was embarrassing. Like he was like trying to hide, and I don't want to speak for him. And anyway, but it came up, all these emotions. He's like, I'm just, that's so far removed from who I am. I have kids, I want to be there. And this could keep me from being able to be around my children. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And it sucks, bro.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. And again, you're talking about global entry. He's talking about trying to volunteer at a school.
Yeah.
Again, these aren't like, well, anyway, it's not like life altering stuff, but it like that those emotions, they came back. And I'm like, I've known this man for almost 30 years and I saw it happen again.
Well, what I think is important about the emotion aspect that's tied to it though, is it could trigger other things. Right. That's and true. So I think that's what I try to focus on. Cause sometimes, man, like something will just set off, like it's like a domino effect, right? Where it's just like that one situation that pulls you back to whenever. all of a sudden all these other things start getting connected to it, and you're just like
Yeah.
standing there kind of being like, damn, like what an idiot. You know what I mean? Like all this
Yeah.
damage that I've caused because of my own actions, you know. And so I think this is, again, it ties back to the power of vulnerability. This is why I'm not shy about hiding it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those things, because I feel like the more I talk about it, or the more people know the past, it removes that invisible stain, you know. And so to the point you're talking about with your friend, and you know, like I don't know if maybe it's harder for that individual, and I'm just making an assumption here, but maybe they don't know the full past, right? Like my son has we've talked about all these things. My kids know that I used to do drugs. I have had conversations with my son. I was like, I mean, he's 15 now. He's gonna be 16 in March. But
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, literally when he was in junior high, I made it a point to tell him about how I got arrested when I was his age, and
Yeah.
what I did and what happened to me. And so even when I got denied like the global entry, like I literally shared that with a bunch of people, because I was just like, it's an easy way for me to get rid of the stain. It's an
Mm.
easy way for me to just put it off, get it past me, because other people think it's funny too, right? Because they know who you are.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about being judged by these people that I'm sharing it with, because they know who I am,
Yeah.
and they're not going to judge me for those actions of myself 20 years ago. And if I don't want to feel that downward spiral or the domino effect of a heavy emotion, it's
Yeah.
best for me to just share it, you know, and talk about it.
I'm glad you brought that up. And Mo, you will not be surprised. And I'm not going to mention your son's name, but his son's also a Goliath and a fucking freak athlete in the best way possible. I fully
Yeah.
understand. But the fact that you share that with your son, that's also, again, referencing a few other friends, you know, again, sometimes they still shy away with it. They're like, I don't want them to. Anyway, there's a bunch of parenting things in there. So I just want your perspective. That's all. And it's to me, I think you and I are like-minded in the sense that I've done the same thing with my children, even though it was super embarrassing and I don't feel good about it, but they're my children. They still love me. I still talk to them every day. You know what I mean? But like, I never
Yeah.
wanted to set an example that was so high that it seemed unattainable. I was like, no, your dad fucked up in the worst way possible. I'm still doing it today at 42. We talked offline, still learning those lessons, because I just wanted it to be like, no, I'm trying to help you so you don't have to do that. My son has decided he wants to do it. He wants to learn those lessons the hard way. My daughter, I believe, I hope, I pray to God, is like, yeah, you already said that was dumb. I'm not going to do that. I was like, thank God.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think that's a girl boy
Fair
thing, though, just so you know.
It might. Recap real quick. You touched on it. You mentioned some of the history. You had very troubled teen years. We'll just phrase it that way. Some addiction, some arrests. You had a pivot. You had a business focus, health and wellness focus, major weight loss focus, all those things. People that hear your story, is there any part of your story that you think that, and again, this is hard because it's your perspective, that people either romanticize or oversimplify? And I'm guilty of this, by the way.
I think success is oversimplified.
Hold on real quick, Joe, because I just want to say this. I said on the first, Mo, when he's very strict about his health and his business, this man is up at 3 a.m. He's either walking, working out, whatever. And sometimes, I swear to God, I don't know what time you actually go to bed, Joe, but I'm like, and again, we're at different time zones, but I'm like, he's still posting stuff or whatever, responding at like 11 a.m. our time. So I'm like, do you ever sleep, bro? But so it's not like oh, I'm successful because I work 8 hours a day. Absolutely not correct. Not
Yeah.
correct at all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I
Oversimplify
actually
success.
I got a bunch of shit for it yesterday, actually, because I posted like my workout tracker. Yesterday was like a cardio day, and
Yeah,
so
I saw it was a free. I didn't comment, but I was like, "Fuck yeah, bro!" But I know you. I'm like, yeah, that's Joe.
Yeah, well, and that was the funny part, was because the sleep tracker is attached to it, so it shows
4
that
hours?
it's 7:30 in the morning. I've done 10 miles, and it says sleep 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
And everybody was just like, dude, you need it. Like even Maria texted me after, like I screenshot and sent it to her, because she had to work early that day. So she left like an hour before I finished. She goes, we really got to work on your sleep. And I was like, but
Yeah.
the thing is like, I actually don't think I have bad sleep. 4.5 hours for sure is not appropriate. I usually sleep around 6 hours. I think that's like the kind of the average. My sleep tracker for the last few years says my average is like 5.5. And I think what it is some of that's just being restless.
Yeah.
which funny enough, and maybe I'll post it today, but like that was what I responded back to Maria. I was like, it's just, I have so much going on. I'm so excited to wake up. Like literally I get excited. I a lot of times I don't want to go to bed. That actually is a trigger that I could share from like, just that's trauma. That's actually trauma. I don't enjoy going to bed. I'll tie it back right now, but
Yeah, table.
so
Yeah, go ahead.
I get super excited to wake up because
Yeah.
it's like the days have restarted. Like there's all these different things to get to, whether it's work,
Yeah.
whether it's fitness, because I do work out early. So I'm always super, super excited to just get up in the morning, get going. But the going to sleep part, I fight it. Like Maria will be like, let's go upstairs. I'm like, no, like let's watch an episode of this, or I'm a psycho and I'll be like, let's go for a walk outside, or like let's do this. But what it is
It's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m.
when I had my second overdose, I woke up and it was a pitch black room. Right. And so for me, I used to have night terrors. Like I would go to sleep and I would literally be afraid that I'm going to wake up and this is all a dream. Like this is all fake. Like I'm living it. Like I died that day. It was literally something I went to counseling for a few years to try to work on, because it was just such a horrible mindset to have. But I think it really messed up my sleep schedule as a result of that.
Joe, that's so wild. Have you ever heard of using dreams? That's a new term that I learned talking to Dave. Do you know what he described it as, it's like a sex dream, but it's using drugs. Like the feeling, whatever. He goes, you wake up, he would wake up. He said, I asked him the question, again, I researched and I asked him this. I'd never heard of it before. And he looked at me like, how do you know that? And he goes, not in many years, but yes, for several years I did. He goes, and I would wake up in a blind sweat. Like, did I use? Like, it was like that. Cause it was so vivid for him and the feeling and all those things. And he's like, it was many years before I stopped having those. Maybe that, I'm not going to say that that's what dreams you're having, but that kind of feeling of like dread.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. Before I go to bed, I have the feeling of dread, that I'm going to close my eyes, things are going to go black, and I'm going to open my eyes and I'm back in that fucking basement. That's literally the
shit, bro.
fear. But it is something that, again, I wake up, I'm very excited. So I can't control an emotion that just comes over me. Right. And so I have like a whole nighttime routine that I do that kind of just helps get my mind off of it. Maria and I do like a nighttime sleep thing that makes noise. That helps me a lot. Like my night terrors have gone away for the most part, as a result of that. And so that's helped. And shame on me, man. We got kind of onto this, but you had asked a question and I don't know that I answered it.
What part of your story do people either romanticize or oversimplify? It's kind of
so
either
the
version of
success,
that.
the
Success.
the success is definitely romanticized for a lot of different reasons. I think number one, I can't really remember like when, like I don't really remember like getting to like a point where I personally looked around and felt like I'm successful. And I call it goal chasing, or like pushing the post, right? Like the finish line. Like I always feel like I'll set a goal and I'll get super close to hitting it. And then before I hit it, I push it further or I change it to something else. And so for me, I'm never actually fully achieving what I'm setting out for. I blow past it essentially, and I keep progressing. So like in business, like everybody I'm sure has that moment where they're like, oh, okay, I want to make $100,000 a year. And then you start making $100,000 a year. And then you're like, okay, well, this is amazing. I want to make 150. And then you get there and like that. So eventually it gets past the number, you know what I mean? Like,
that's me.
So eventually you
That's
get
me.
past like that number and it becomes less about financial and it becomes about something else. And so I think people romanticize business success from a financial standpoint. The best example I can give is there was a year that I got like not even the full year, but like my biggest check that I've ever gotten for services rendered. And I have no problem sharing the number. It was $863,000. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
I've made it. Yeah.
In my mind, leading up to that moment, I was like, this is how I'm going to feel. This is what's going to be like this. My life's going to change. Like that year ended up being like the worst year of my life for so many different reasons. And
Wow.
it
Bro.
was,
Yeah.
it was, it was such a good moment in my life to go, wow, like all the things that I thought were important and again, romanticized, I was doing that
Yeah.
myself. Like I was like, I'm working my ass off. Like I could do all these different things and then I'm going to get paid. Like this is all this is going to work out. And then you get it. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to open this business. I'm going to have like this go on. Like, and I literally, that was the year. Like I literally looked around and I was like, there was a room full of people that are supposed to care about me. Not a single person did. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was working to work and achieve things, but I wasn't feeling the full value. I wasn't really truly helping other people. It was just, it became a game
Mm,
to hit a number. And,
interesting.
and yeah, it was just such a weird experience to go through. But I feel like, again, trust me, I'm more than blessed. And I have made sure to share that and that money helped many, many people in my life. It had a ripple effect through several people. And so I would never not want to achieve that. But I think it's helped me adjust my mindset on what success truly is. And I think at the end of the day, you always hear people say like, well, if you truly enjoy what you do, you never feel like you work a day in your life. Like
Mm,
that statement is very true in a lot of different ways, but you have to be able to know what's important to you, right? You can make that statement, but if you can't put
Mm.
food in the fridge, if you can't pay your bills, if your family members, are suffering and you're succeeding, if you're taking trips, but your parents or cousins or whoever aren't, like
Yeah.
there's just certain things like that come along with romanticizing success. And so I think again, it kind of comes back to like being careful about where you spend your time and what you're looking to ultimately achieve. So I think initially I romanticized business because it was the thing that got me away from
yeah.
it was a easy way to pull time. If there's one thing you like, oh, I don't want to be spending time doing all these bad habits, work is certainly the best one to apply your time to.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that one specifically is probably the most romanticized. And even like I think it was a big adjustment for Maria when her and I started dating. We've been dating for 2 years. When we first met, she literally asked me, she's like, "What do you do for a living?" Like, I don't understand because she's like, I come to the gym at 5 a.m. You're here. If I come at 6, you're here. If I come at 8 a.m., you're here. Like, how are you here for 3 hours of your day? And she's like, "Are you retired military or are you, this or that?" And I explained to her what I do and who I am. And eventually we started dating and, she was just like, "Well, that's cool. Like, you get an office from home and you're a business owner and a business partner and you're a consultant and you have all these different things like." And then she quickly learned like, yeah, and that means some days I could work like I don't need to work. And sometimes that means that I'm going to work 12 hours. And sometimes that means on a Saturday, I might have to take a phone call. This means sometimes on a Sunday, I might
Yeah.
have to step out of dinner. That means we could be on vacation somewhere and we have to pull off on the side of the freeway so I can put something together and get it over to a client that's urgent. And like, you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
different kinds of sacrifices that get made. And I think
Yeah.
I think business owners, people think that, okay, they get all the money and they have none of the responsibility. But the reality is when shit goes bad, it goes through
Yeah.
layers. And by the time
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
gets to you, it is the worst pile of shit,
Right.
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, for sure. And Joe, Maria, I'm gonna do my best to have her on because she's a powerhouse in and of herself. Her story to me, she doesn't think so, which interested me. I was like, your story is amazing.
Yeah.
She's like, it's like no big anyway. But yeah, so Mo, you met them both, power
Yes.
couple, 100%,
Yeah.
and I'm blessed to have them both as friends. Call them both friends, and to spend time with them. But anyway, we've referenced Maria a few times. I just wanted to kind of, I'm not going to go
Well, I
beyond that
think,
until she's okay with it, but she's fucking awesome too, bro. You're
yeah,
you're
yeah,
blessed. You're a
yeah,
blessed man.
yeah, yeah. I made a joke to her. And look, I actually reference her because she's an important pillar in my life, right?
Fuck yeah.
I mentioned earlier, I mean, you're an important pillar. You guys, at the end of the day, like the people who are in your life that you're spending time with are
Yeah.
going to be important for many, many reasons. And,
Yeah.
there's that classic, you are who you surround yourself by
Yes.
kind of term, but it's very true, and I think some of the emotional damage that I had that I was still kind of dealing with, she really did a good job of kind of coming in and cleaning that up. So I reference her a lot, in these situations, because the reality is some of who I am now, right, is going to be
Yeah.
resulted by the partner that I choose.
100%.
Go Mo.
I have a question, and you talked about it a little bit when you were moving from one phase of your life to another, and then now when you've been speaking about Maria, that making sure you surround yourself around the right people, surround yourself around the right people. When you're in a situation where you feel like you are rock bottom, or you're in that place where you're looking up to try to figure it out, how do you find those people? Because your perspective, your sight of what life looks like is very jaded at that point. How do you go about, let me move from this and start surrounding myself with these individuals?
Yeah. Well, it's what I realized. That's a great question, Mo. What I realized many years after it happened was, as I started to pick up healthy habits, a lot of it
Yeah.
actually related to the gym. I would realize, like, when I would go early in the morning, I was like, who are these people that are going? I was like, I'd start talking to somebody and I was like, kind of the same thing as, like, who's up at 5 a.m. in the morning? And a lot of times they ended up being people who were retired, right?
Yeah.
Who are older than me, that have life experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
They were business owners. They were executives themselves. A lot of the people that I would meet were successful in their own right, and they just had experience and they were open to sharing it, again, being vulnerable. And there's a couple guys that are in my life that are true mentors that I really just met at the gym. It's not like I sought them out, but it was just like a natural, organic thing. You start a conversation with somebody about something minor and you learn a little bit. A lot of times people love to ask, like, the very first question. Anytime you meet somebody, it's like the most common question, like, what do you do for a living?
What do you do for a living?
And I think that's just like a very human thing, because we all know we have to work. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like a good icebreaker. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have interesting businesses. There's all these different niches. There's all these different things. And so for me, it was really just finding those type of people kind of organically. I did have, funny enough, when I was 16 and going through my struggles, there was a guy who was amazing in business. He gave me my first chance, and I eventually blew it, right? But he knew who I was, and he knew that he didn't have to judge me based off of those things. He was always judging me based on who he knew I could be,
Yeah.
not necessarily what I was doing. And so I've absorbed those type of practices when I mentor people. I can see somebody and I can see, okay, they're here in this starting stage and they've got a lot of stages to go through, and I've been through those, and I know what they're capable of coming out on the other side. But sometimes you have people that fall off, and that's okay too. You might be able to know that somebody can get from stage 1 to stage 10, but they quit on you at stage 5. That's
Right.
perfectly fine too, right? You still
Yeah.
helped them get through half the stage. So when I met that individual, he helped me a lot in my initial business stage, and he helped me get from stage 1 to stage 5. Right. And then I met another person through work who helped mentor me and hold me accountable. And he helped me move a couple stages. And then you just kind of meet people that just naturally will give you those different perspectives and different
Yeah.
experiences, and they'll be vulnerable with you. And similar, Tyler, what you're doing with your boy, Mo, what you do with your son, it's like you teach them the best you can and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But now in my stage of life, I am very selective of who I talk to. There's times that, I will talk to somebody and they have a lot of value as an individual, but at the same time, you have to be select. I only have so much time in the day, so I have to be
Right.
careful too
Yeah.
who I let into my life. And sometimes it's me being a little bit more reserved, or me being a little bit hesitant, because sometimes it's I want to give now more than I receive.
Right.
And that's not necessarily just financial, but it's time related. And so
Mhm.
Yeah.
there's times that I'll meet somebody and I see them, they're at like stage 7, and I'm like, oh, I know how to get them, the next where they're at. But then at the same time, it's like they might pull that time away from somebody else that I'm already dedicating that same time to.
I
You know
see.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Good
Or
point.
I owe that person, right? Like I have an obligation to those
Yeah.
individuals. So I think that's that's also a challenge, you know, in general. But
Yeah.
I encourage people first and foremost therapy, hands down. First
Yeah.
step, therapy. Because if you might not be able to trust everyone, or you might not be able to identify
Yep.
who's going to be those type of individuals for you. That's
Mhm.
just what happened for me.
I see.
But eventually I sought out professional help, and it was helpful, right?
Yeah.
It was somebody who, you know, had a complete outside perspective, didn't know any of my family or friends, and didn't have any judgment towards me. They're simply collecting what I'm saying, using their professional expertise to then spit back out what they recommend. Sometimes I'd agree with them, sometimes I wouldn't. Um, there was one guy, I mean, I literally remember having like an epiphany where like the guy was like giving his session, and in my mind, I couldn't stop thinking. I was like, this guy is such full of shit, and he just wants me to come back and collect his hourly fee. And we finished the session, and he was just like, same time next week. I was like, no, this will be my last one, you know, because
Good.
it just wasn't adding value. And
Yeah.
we're lucky in the age of technology that we are. I think there's there's an app called like BetterHelp, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Uh, and then and I might be butchering that, so look it up. But there's plenty of apps that you could
Yep.
pay a monthly subscription fee, and you can basically get professional help. Most employers, we do this for our company. We provide that. I think there's like 2 hours a month that's complimentary. So you can
Awesome.
schedule 2 sessions a month and get professional advice and help. And there's different categories. There's like relationship, suicide, like there are all kinds of different
Yeah.
things for what you're experiencing. And so I think that's a first step. The second thing that past that, I looked around at people who were in the same industry as me, and I would just ask them if it was okay to spend time with them, and or if there was something I could assist them with, or if I could, you know, just anything, be a fly on the wall, really, and just try to absorb what they're thinking about and talking about without the pressure of me having to do those type of things, right? It was just
Yeah.
me seeing them in their natural environment, I guess.
Yeah.
I was very lucky, and this was a little bit of a tipping point for me, a little bit of a change in my life. It was actually right around the time that I started my first actual business, where the company that I was working for, they were seeing I was a W-2 employee. They were literally seeing the value that I was adding to the organization. And they decided to put me in a life coaching program that they paid for. And I want to say it was between $18,000 and $25,000 for the year. It was an
Damn.
18-month course. And that experience was very interesting. Same thing. There was a lot. The guy was very like, very kind of like a hippie. He was very free. I don't know the best way to put it, but he was
That's
very
fine.
free.
Yeah.
We get what you're talking
And,
about.
Yeah. I got it.
and so in the beginning, I was like, this is the complete opposite of what I think that where this is going. But because
Yeah.
he was very much in tune with just how a person should be,
Yeah.
without like, okay, well, you want to be successful, or you want to own a business, or you want to be the best, you know, whatever position title. He was very like, none of that matters. You got to be the best person first.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, this makes a lot after the fact. I was like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
We always want to be better from a perspective of a title, from a perspective of a bank account number, from a perspective of how others perceive us. But very rarely do people self-reflect and go, I just want to be a better person. Like,
Yeah.
how do I
It's
be a
true.
better how do I be a better son? How do I be a better father? How do I be a better brother? How do I be a better friend? And that was a lot of what his course was about. The coursework really was like digging out kind of some of the how you perceived yourself. He called it a shadow. Like,
Yeah.
what's your shadow look like? It's dark. It's behind you for a reason. And, you know, he actually had us do an exercise where we drew what our shadow looked like. And it was,
Oh shit.
yeah, it was like an experience, you know? And so I think that perspective really helped me, because then it kind of reset things where it's like, okay, this is how I am. This is who I am. This is good, bad,
Yeah.
ugly, everything about me. Like, this is just who I am as a person. And the intent of who you want to be is important as well. Just because you haven't accomplished those things, if your intention is to improve on those things, you can't lie to yourself, right? And so at the end of the day,
Yeah.
since you can't lie to yourself, you know what your true intentions are in life and with your
Yeah.
actions. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that bro, so good. And real quick, Mo, just to recap, people in the gym at that time are retired business owners, stuff like that. Joe and I used to work out at this gym, the same location. There's also a random guy who would bring a microphone and walk on the treadmill for an hour and rap for an hour
that's true.
because, like, he was, you know, that
That's very
shout out
true.
to whoever that guy is.
Straight
Straight
up
up.
true.
Bro, he was still
But
getting it
also,
together.
but hey, man, whatever, you know, performance. It made sense to me. I just laughed.
Before you move
But
past something,
also,
I want to
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
ask a question in the respect you've said a bunch of times about being vulnerable, and then you're talking about this course you went through, which to me
Yeah.
translated to it made you be vulnerable with yourself, maybe not with
Oof.
everybody else, but looking at your shadow makes you be super vulnerable with who you are. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking when you are being vulnerable, as you were trying to build these relationships with people and these kind of things, was that your way of I don't know if this is the right word, but rebuilding trust that had been damaged through things that had happened in your past or what have? Were you then, that vulnerability was allowing you to open up those trust doors so people could trust you could trust them, and kind of work through that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had to do that in stages. So I think the first thing I did, Mo, was I actually took a look at who I had in my life, because at the end of the day, if I wanted to kind of make amends to certain people, right? Like if I knew that I had done damage, just because someone's in my life doesn't mean everybody gets that. So I actually
Yeah.
went through kind of some stages of that. And again, we live in a very unique world right now where, you know, you can be on Facebook or Instagram or whatever and have tens of thousands of friends.
Yep.
But, you know,
Yeah.
so I think that kind of had to happen in a little bit of stages as well, where like I took a look around and I was like, who do I, okay, this is who I want to be. How have I been that type of person to these individuals that are important to me? So I would kind of look at each individual that's in my life, and there were conversations I had to make amends with people. There were actual amends that needed to be made where I don't know, maybe I wasn't a good friend, maybe I wasn't a good cousin or brother or, you know, uncle. Like there was just certain people I had to make amends with. Certainly on like my family life, like my stepdad, this guy, I like beat him up when I was like 16 years old. And we're talking 10 plus years later. I'm in my mid 20s after going through this course, and I literally ended up, God, I'm almost getting emotional thinking about it right now. I literally called him and had to tell him like, "Hey man, I'm sorry." And he was just like, "What are you talking about? Like, this is
Yeah.
10 years ago."
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But
All right.
Yeah, bro. I get it.
It's good.
you know, you think about these things that you did when you didn't really mean to do them,
Yeah.
and the impact that it could have had on those people. And
Right.
like I said, everyone carries an invisible stain to some degree. And so I kind of was like, man, for my stepdad, like, I wonder what kind of pain he's carried around for the last 10 years from that, you know, because that specific situation, like him and my mom almost got divorced, you know what I mean? And God, like life would have been so different, you know what I mean? But he
Yeah.
stuck it out, and, you know, he took it on the chin, literally and figuratively, like, and, you know, and so like those type of situations, you know, I had to make amends with those type of individuals.
Yeah.
And then from a leadership perspective, I think that's where my mindset shifted to, you need to reach back. You need to make it a bigger priority to stop worrying about the titles, the paychecks, and start thinking about the position of power that you are now in and the amount of impact you can make. And again, the ripple effect of that, right? So if I reach out and help somebody and they're thankful, and all I have to say is, listen, when it's right in your life, just do the same thing. And God,
Yeah.
like, it's so crazy, like that impact that it has.
Yeah. I would say kudos to you too. Like when you were talking earlier about perspective and tying emotion to things that you can control, because you can't fix what happened in the past, but you can
Nope.
control taking that step forward and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry about what happened." A lot of people would have been like, "That was 10 years ago. I'm not going to go back across that bridge." So I just think that lends to the shift in perspective that you had that we talked about at the beginning, the mindset that you have to be able to transition from whatever bad thing has happened in your life to being that person that, like you said earlier, you want to be.
A couple more questions. I respect everybody's time, but these are some things I'm very interested in. What do people get wrong about discipline, especially after trauma or addiction?
I think discipline, like it sounds like almost like a dirty word. You know what I mean?
It
Like
does.
a lot of people think of it as like they have to sacrifice something for it. So like in order to be disciplined, you got to give up, you know, whatever. And I get the certain circumstances for it. I try to think, instead of saying like think about discipline, I try to think about grit. I think it's a better way to think
Yeah.
about it, because you know your own pain tolerance, you know what you're capable of. And so I feel like, you know, to say like, oh, I'm disciplined because, you know, I get up every morning and I do this or do that, what, you know, whatever it is. I think of it more as like grit, like in the sense of time, like long amounts of time actually are very easier. And so discipline becomes easier when you like look at it more from a like consistency standpoint. Maybe that's a better
Mhm.
way of saying
Mhm.
it. I think they go hand in hand, but I think, yeah, I think just that aspect. I think I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but
I think so.
It's your perspective, brother, because you define it, whether you have the words for it or not. You define it with your actions. The next one, and you kind of touched on it, but I maybe dig into a little bit. What's the biggest business mistake you made early on? And the tie-in is, how did you recover? Like, because so you made this mistake. How did you recover without spiraling?
well, from my personal experience, I mean, I
Yeah.
did spiral. I mean, I did
What do you
spiral.
mean?
Well, like the very first like person who gave me an opportunity, you know, at the end of the day, like it got to a certain point where I let him down on many different levels, but it was mostly because again, the learning lesson is checking your emotions at the door, ego. Right. And
Yeah.
so for that specific mentor that I had in my life, or the biggest business mistake that I made, was letting ego take over. And I
Mm.
was very, very successful early in my career. So after the addiction, I mean, I went all in on work, and who doesn't
Yeah.
love a workforce? You know, who doesn't love somebody who will work 20 hours a day and say yes to everything? And I was that person, and I would just say yes, say yes, say yes. And then I had
Yeah.
very high expectations of people. And then I'm just like anybody else. I mean, you give a young person authority and power and watch them misuse it. And
Yeah.
I 100% was one of those people. Like it was my way or the highway. Like I didn't
Got it.
look at these are people that I should value and I should teach them. And
Yeah.
everyone has a superpower and everyone has something that they need to work on. You know, I really looked at it as like, I'm here, you need to be here. And if you don't like it, there's the door. I mean, I literally I used to keep like a stack of the employee back when you had to swipe to like clock in. I used to keep a stack of the people that I've terminated on my desk. And whenever somebody would make a mistake, I'd like come into my office, sit down, and I'd grab the stack and like put it in front of me and just be like, so tell me what you did. Let's talk about this. And it was just like an ego power move, and eventually caught up with me. Yeah. I mean, rightfully so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people complained, and I let that boss down. You know, I let that mentor down, and it wasn't the way he taught me. It wasn't the way that I should have been acting, plain and
Yeah.
simple. And so I think when that experience happened, it really like I spiraled, because it was just like one thing after another, you know, like I just, it happened in my professional life where, you know, and now all of a sudden, like I was getting upset because it's like, why I used to be the best, but you know, now there's this stuff going on, there's all this noise. And then you bring that home, you bring that into your friend life.
Yeah.
Then you start to, you know, just judge people. So like, you know, my mentor who I used to listen to, who's trying to guide me in the right direction, he's saying go left. I now start going right. You know what I mean? You just start doing silly things. And so, yeah, I had this spiral. And I think sometimes the best thing is, I'll put it in an analogy, right? Like a plane gets shot down and you're spiraling out, pull the ejection seat, get out, like let the plane crash. I literally like, I literally had to just let things crash and burn, man. I ended up leaving that company and going to another company, and they had heard all the great things about me,
Yeah.
and they didn't hear all of the bad things, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point I was like, okay, I could use this as an opportunity to reinvent myself. And I think that's what I did. But what I also was, at least at that point, kind of humble enough was to realize that I had some stains. And I made sure my new mentor like knew about those things. And I was very honest with him and vulnerable as well. And I was like, look, like I need some help in these areas because I get very frustrated when people can't keep up with me. And you seem very well balanced. And these guys are not doing what I want them to do and this and that.
Yeah.
And he gave me a bunch of different perspectives. Like, respect is earned. You can't demand respect. You
Yeah.
can't come in here and just be like, just because you know how to do everything and they don't, like all of a sudden they should respect you. Like you're not some man on a pedestal. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just time,
Okay.
that was necessary.
Mo, anything?
Nope. He answered
All
it.
right. This ties into my next question. And this is just brother, me asking you. It's something I've had to start thinking about. How do you separate confidence from ego in your own mind? Because they are two different things, but I'm guilty of both.
Yeah. Well, I think ego, it's a great question. I think
Putting you on the spot.
No. It's a great question. I just want to I have an answer. I just want to make sure I frame it the right way. I think confidence it comes from when other people are sharing their perspective of those things. And
Yeah.
it's almost like instead of perspective, it's almost like reassurance, like, okay, I did the right thing, or I'm doing the right things, or I'm being perceived the right way. So I become more confident when I'm not the one making the evaluation of it, if that makes sense. Like I become more confident that I'm capable of doing something or achieving something when other people are buying into the fact like, yeah, you can, or yeah, I believe I see you doing that. Or
Yeah.
I also think confidence comes with time and with having a bit of ego. So it's something that has to be checked, but you need to be confident. So the overall, other people should be confident in you and feel that. Otherwise, why even set out on doing it, right? But there has to be a little bit of somewhat reserved ego where you go, I know I can accomplish this. I can't, I know I things. But ego is a dangerous thing if fed like selfishly.
For
And
sure.
so I feel like for me, there's a lot of reasons for me to have ego, right? I'm a man who makes over $500,000 a year. I'm a man who can lift many, many things. I'm strong. I'm
Lift all the weights in the gym.
I have a career. Like one of the weirdest things is like, like when TikTok goes through that list, and it's like less than 1% of men are all these things. And I'm like, I'm all of those, I'm 6'4", 6'5", depending on the shoes. You know what I mean? I check all these boxes.
Yeah, my kids call it self-glazing because I'll send it, be like, this is your dad. They're like, yeah, we got it, Dad. Thanks.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was self-glaze, whatever, for the the younger generation.
So I think ego is very self-fulfilling, but you gotta check it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's kind of like it's like the Spider-Man quote, right? Like with great power comes great responsibility. So I think ego is kind of like in that realm. Like you really have to be careful with it, because if I'm sitting there talking about all these things, then people become a little less confident around me, and then my confidence actually goes down, because then other people are like, you know what I mean? Like people are more reserved, and I'm more reserved. Like all these things kind of happen. But I'm a lot more confident, like when I walk into a room and like I'm boosting other people up and like I'm helping them, and then they're the ones who are just like, get out of here, like, thank you. And then they feed it back like times 2 or 3, give somebody a compliment and watch them feed 2 or 3 back to you. It's like the most amazing. It happens all the time,
Damn, that is true.
It is.
Mo, these are my cheat questions because I know Joe. Joe, I just want people that don't know you or haven't met you, but best way I could frame these.
Well, can I share one thing too?
Go.
I actually, it's very, very funny. And this is not me trying to do a compliment fish on either of you two.
Go ahead.
But I am actually a lot less confident than people would believe. There's a lot of like self-doubt that comes around as just a natural react. Like we all have this like weird imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, look, even at the wedding, like I put on an outfit, I look at Maria, I'm like, she's like, you look great. I'm like, I fucking look like shit, you know, like whatever it was. Like there's just so many things. So I feel like like I really feel like confidence, like I said, is really just like a little bit of like back and forth between you and other people. Like, you know what I mean? And that's why it's important to surround yourself with good people, because then it's like,
100%.
you know what I mean? Like you're a little
Yeah.
bit less confident when there's a room full of people that don't like you. Just it's going to be one.
Well, that's one very true.
Very true.
Yeah.
To add on
And
to
then,
that, oh, go ahead.
but then in that setting, that's when your ego comes out, right? Because
Sure.
if I'm
Yes.
in a room full of people that don't like me, I know I'm going to be less confident. So then I'm going to let my ego come
Yeah.
out a little bit and be like, well, they already don't like me. So guess
Ah.
what? Now I'm going to puff my chest. Now I am going to be that big, strong, 6'5" guy that knows I can select my card and not worry about it going through, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So you just got
Fair
to
enough.
play
That
the
is
room.
true. A perspective I never like. It's true. You need to have both, but those are the times where, when you're saying this, I'm reflecting back in my own life, and I'm like, "Yep, I remember feeling almost a little arrogant in those situations." So that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, to your point, again, this is where, again, when you're around family and friends, it's a little different, but like looking at the people that the wedding and everyone's like, oh, your brother, he looks like Rip from Yellowstone. And oh my God, Joe's like, oh my God, your friend group is amazing. They're so, and I'm like, all right, motherfucker. I mean, I'm here too. I mean, but and then you have Papi Chulo Frank, Mo's husband, looking like a straight, tombstone cowboy. And I'm just like, but it made me happy. In all fairness, it made me happy because it's like your friend group and your circle, your world, they're very impressive. And my parents were like, you should be proud. I was like, well, I am. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
Because they're good people. Anyways, moving on from that. Well, you kind of led into it, even though you didn't know I was going to ask the question. How do you handle relationships with people who know this you as opposed to maybe your full story? And again, I'm cheating. I already know, but I just other people who put it out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like it's not like I open with it, but I'm so
Well,
open
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's so funny because like I feel like, again, for me in my stage of life, I actually want people to know. Like and it's not because I want them to do the check marks of like,
Yeah.
okay, like this guy is this, and this, but it's more so I want to be able to be 100% authentically myself. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't have the best version of me without the full story.
Right.
And a good example of this would be Maria and I were watching a movie called Cherry. I don't know if you guys have seen it before, but it has is it Tom Holland, the Spider-Man character?
Oh, nice. All right.
It's a movie about a guy he has emotional issues. He goes to war. He comes back with PTSD. He gets hooked on drugs. He starts robbing banks, and then he goes to jail, and then, he fixes his life and moves on. But like, it's a very long story, and we're watching it, and there's very heavy drug usage in the movie. And like Maria is like kind of clinging to me a little bit, and she's looking at me, and she knows my story, right? And so she's like, and I'm talking about certain things. I was like, oh, you know what's about to happen right now? This is going to happen. And she's like, why is she shaking? I was like, well, anyway, I don't want to ruin all the moments of it, but she's looking at me because she knows my story. So she's
Right.
being a good partner and wants to make sure I'm okay actually watching this movie. But then also,
Right.
I'm explaining things to her based off of how my experience with those things happen, and it's helping her somewhat better understand me, like, and realize, like, there was a scene where the guy's like shaking and going through like not withdrawals, but he's going through like night terrors, and she's like looking at me and like looking back in the movie, and like you can see different things registering, like.
Yeah.
And again, that's a partner. Of course, you should share your past life with your partner, but I'm not shy.
Yeah, it's one
about
thing to hear it. It's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to like see it played out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you can be like, you went through
Yeah.
that, and you're like, oh yeah.
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 Yeah, and look, even now, this year I'll hit 19 years. So I'm literally coming up on Like I was 19 when I overdosed for my second time. I'm coming up on, and to me,
So
it's so
wow.
funny because I put it behind me so long ago that I
Right.
never actually really accepted I was an addict until maybe like 5 years after I was clean. And then I was like,
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is a real part of my life. Like
Yeah.
I gotta accept it because it is what it is. So it's almost like now it's even sometimes like I'm like, I don't necessarily want like, okay, at year 18, I literally posted it and was just like 18 years clean. And everyone loves it. Everyone congratulates me. They know who I am.
Yeah.
I do have many friends that knew me back then and witnessed what was happening. I do have a lot of people who never knew me like that. And so you start to question like, when do I stop talking about that? And I used to think I would stop at some point, but I'm like,
No.
why? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No.
Like,
Yeah.
so to answer your question, I think I'm a pretty open book
Yeah.
for the most part. I get a little bit more reserved with sharing it in a professional setting, but
Right, right.
many of the individuals, like I said, there's power and vulnerability, and many people who either work for me, with me, other partners in the company, they all know the story. They've
Yeah.
heard the podcast or they've seen my posts or shares on whether Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. And it's not like I'm going on LinkedIn though and being like, you know,
A fair point.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Two things, and Mo, jump in if you need. But having the relationship I have with Joe, again, it's relatively new, a couple years, but I talk about it in the book, Shameless Plug, Street Tales Volume 1. Here's this guy, giant human being, physically fit, and we all men who have been there. It's like, the woman that you're with is like, oh, my girl, her boyfriend, and it's just like, all right, you never know what is going to happen. And then you see this guy, you're like, God damn it, man, this dude's fucking jacked. All right, so you see what I'm saying? Like, it kind of creates this little defense thing. But talking with him and his level, it checked me, and it was a few, maybe I don't know, several months after Joe. I mean, we don't need to get into specifics, but he shared so much of his life that I was like, oh my God, he's so open about it and willing to talk about it. And part of my stuff is one, shame, two, embarrassment, and then three, what I'm having to overcome is like, I've been in this law enforcement world for so long, I don't like sharing with anybody my private life. I don't,
Yeah.
to the point that it almost comes off as either lying or falsifying. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm very, very defensive about it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here's this man who has great success. He's open about his life, and he's willing to talk. Not an arrogant or nothing like that. It's not like that, but just very honest and open and just engaged in conversation. And I had to check myself. And I remember when I shared some things with Joe, and he's like, "You motherfucker, I've been telling you this shit for months." And like, I was like, there's a lot of reasons why, again, I'm not getting into specifics, but I'm like, it's not a comfort zone for me. It's not,
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
used to it, outside the world of law enforcement. And again, Joe, Mo is one of my longtime friends slash mentors slash, like, she knows everything, good, bad, the ugly, and indifferent. Same with BJ, but we're in the same profession. So it's like, that is a new thing for me. And you're one of the few, and I've very few, one, men, two, non-law enforcement men, I've ever shared some of the stuff I've shared with you. It's hard for me. And, saying this now on the podcast, but you led by example, whether you knew you were doing it or not. And that's the point. And I'm trying to like kind of emphasize that. And I appreciate you. So I'll say that on the podcast for
Well,
what it's worth.
I appreciate you too. Could I tell you something that's kind of unique? 'Cause I don't know that I really realized that I would do that or act like openly share like that until a couple years ago myself.
Yeah.
So I think part of like what I shared with you guys earlier about like myself, like I had to make sure who I wanted to be, like first
Yeah.
and foremost, like with myself. But time is very important to me. It is the number one thing because I literally died when I was 19. Every day is
So
an
wild.
added benefit to my story, to my life, to the people in my life. And so for me, I think like I get it all the time. People will be like, you're just so open or you're too giving, or I'm like, look, I don't know how much time I have left. So I would much rather put it out there and like,
Yeah.
let's say I did all that, Tyler, and it had the opposite effect on you. You're like, fuck this guy. He's got like something going on.
Yeah, fair
better
enough.
for me, better for
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? Like because there are people, again, not for poor Maria. She's gonna be like, you mentioned me 1,000 times in this.
Love her. Yeah.
One of her best friends, when we first started dating, we made people aware we were dating her a couple, maybe a month or two, where she kind of acted like we were all going to be friends. And Maria moved to do her
Internship, fellowship, whatever it is. Yeah.
her fellowship, and that girl used it as an opportunity to then months later go, just stop talking to her. And when Maria asked her, like, what the heck's going on, she told her, I don't like Joe. I don't like him. I don't think he's good for you. And a lot of that had to do with me being open with her and
Oh,
sharing,
really?
being
Interesting.
myself.
Yeah.
And, so at the end of the day, like, look, I don't intend for somebody not to like me, but I would much rather be honest about who I am, my past, who I'm intending to be, my actions. And if somebody thinks that comes across the wrong way and they choose not to indulge in that, good for them. That's their time. They could choose who they spend time with and who they want to be friends with, and good for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And Maria's situation, she was just like, wow, like that's a weird, like I have a lot of friends, and even if they don't like you now and I like you for all these reasons, I would think that eventually my friends would like you for those same reasons. But if they don't, a true friend would really just be there for me and not
Right.
really
Yeah.
care who you are as long as I'm happy. And so it helped her get rid of somebody in her life that wasn't going to be beneficial to our relationship,
Yeah.
and that happens, it happens. So I think, like, for me, I don't know. I have realized, you've said it, Maria said it. A lot of people that I meet will say it to me months down the line. Like, dude, you just really just open book. But I think I
But
do
in a
it.
good way. I
Yeah.
hope I am clarifying. And Mo, help me if I'm not.
Yeah.
Not in a way that's like just wanting to either trauma dump or arrogant. It's not. I don't know how to really articulate it other than you're just honest, and it doesn't feel phone. It's like you're just like, this is who I am, and for help me,
Better or
Mo, for
worse.
better or for worse, this is who I am, and I don't have time to figure this out with you. It's like you either like it or you don't, and then we can keep. If you do, great. We're gonna have a great relationship. And again, Joe, even with your schedule, I'll text you, call you, even if you don't pick up right away. You're like, hey, give me an hour, give me 20, whatever it is. You give the effort and the time. See what I mean? Like, it's not just like, hey, I just want you to know all this shit about me because look at me. It's not like that. Mo, help
No, I
clarify,
mean,
or
I think
hopefully I
it
said
goes
it right.
back. I've said it earlier, but I think that vulnerability is a part of his story, and
Yeah,
it's now become a personality or a characteristic of who he is. And so
yeah.
that's why I think it is authentic, and you can tell it's authentic. And
Authentic.
there are
Thank
some
you. That's
people
the word
that
I
it
was looking
makes
for.
very uncomfortable. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, you weed them out right away. I mean, I would say I've known him for a very short snippet at the wedding, and now having this conversation with him and listening to the first podcast, I appreciate the vulnerability that you bring to these conversations that we're having, because I think it opens doors for people to realize that you can be successful and still be someone that lays down and shows that I'm human at the same time. I think there has been
yeah,
that misconception that one is interchangeable, and you can feel successful, you can be successful, you can be these things, you can be check all the boxes like you said on the TikTok, and still be a human that can sit down with people and lay out their flaws. And I think that is where that's where your story is very unique, because people don't show those things. And I think that's where the vulnerability translates to authenticity and trust for people that do want to
yeah.
get to know you. So thank
Yeah.
you.
For
You're
sure.
welcome.
Last question, Joe. And again, we're going over a little bit of time, but I appreciate you guys. You touched on it, but I think for, again, just conversations I've had, one with you, but other friends of mine, and you alluded to it. How do you navigate? I'll just do it from a parenting with your children. You alluded to it, but can you kind of expound on it, and then that'll
Yeah.
be kind of it. But a lot of
Well,
people don't want to, or there's a bunch of different ways. But just your
no,
method or your
I'm
thought
I'm
process.
I'm always open.
Yeah, man.
My parenting style obviously is a little unique because I was such a rebellious kid myself, but I have the perspective. My parents divorced when I was 3. They both remarried, spent primarily time with my mom and my stepdad, and then, my dad restarted a family, and they kind of did their own thing for many years and then came back into my life later. And so for myself, like, when I entered into with my ex-wife, she had a daughter that was 3.5 when we started dating, and I came into her life and immediately became dad, and she was 4. She's going to be turning 21 literally in 2 months, and or excuse me, 3 months. And then, you know, very early into our relationship, we ended up having my son, who's now 15, going to be 16. And so I was a young dad. Like, I was 20 years old when I pretty much became a father of a 4-year-old, and I was 1 year clean. And
Wow, bro.
Wow.
and then so for my daughter, before my son was born, which with my ex, we were only together for a couple months before I think we were like 6 months together, and we found out we were 3 months pregnant. Like, something, it was something like that. So we got pregnant pretty quick. And so I realized I was going to have a son at 21. So now here I am, 1 year clean. I now have a 4-year-old, and
Wow.
I'm a stepdad essentially. Luckily, I had the experience of a great stepdad, right? And I shared with you guys earlier that, my stepdad, I mean, he never treated me like I was not his own. I mean, not ever, not once. He was a different kind of stepdad. He was very much more about providing financially. Like, he would go to work and do his best and come home and pay the bills, and he would help with homework and stuff like that. But he wasn't like I'm going to go out and play baseball with you or football with you. I'm not going to, teach you all these life lessons. He wasn't that kind of involved stepfather. And so I was like, okay, well, first of all, like, for me, as if I'm going to be a stepdad, like, I need to have the approach that I'm very invested. Like, this is my kid, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And because my real dad wasn't around in my life, I knew that pain and what she was experiencing.
Yeah.
And so I made a commitment to just be a very involved father. And so for my daughter, it was really focused on, I was a little more, I would hold her more accountable to things, make her very structured. I literally gave her like books to read, and we would focus on very certain things.
That's
It's so funny because we just had lunch together, and she was like, whether you like it or not. And even though her mom and I are now divorced, like, I'm her dad, right? And so,
Yeah.
uh, she literally was like, whether people like it or not, she's like, I'm just like you. She's like, there's no, there's, it's, they're kind of, and I laughed. I thought it was funny. I was like, yeah, I mean, literally, you're like my copy. And so she's very organized, very intelligent, very emotional. And I think that was how I raised her.
Yeah.
And I just used the experience of what my stepdad was good at and what my father was lacking, and put those two together to be the father that I needed to be for her.
That's awesome.
For my, I think, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, but you have to raise boys differently than you raise women. And I think for
Yep.
my son, I was raised by my mom and my stepdad, but my mom, she comes from the South, and they have a very specific way of doing things. Um, and my mom was a little bit more relaxed in some of those things, but my grandma was like very kind of militant in certain things too. So, what I tried to instill with my son is just being respectful, and
Yeah.
really, I knew, I mean, I didn't, I would say more so towards him hitting maturity. Like, you can really see like his size. I was like, oh my God, he's going to be just like me. He's,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
he's
ain't joking.
15, he's 6'1", he's
Yeah.
220 pounds. He is a
Good
grown
Lord.
size man.
No
He's a small
kidding.
gorilla, bro. He's a gorilla.
He's been doing boxing for over 2 years. And so for him, first, I really focused on, he has a very free spirit. Like, he was like, as he was growing up, he was all over the place, like, just imagination, very like just intrigued and wanting to do all kinds of things. And so for him, I just kind of let him be a little bit more of a free spirit, where like my daughter, I was a little bit more controlling. With him, I kind of let him be a little bit more of a free spirit. And then as he matured, that's when I kind of started putting up the guardrails. So I wanted him to have personality,
Yeah.
and I think he got that. And then I wanted to teach him compassion, and being respectful to women, and knowing that he was going to be a big guy. And then as he got to maturity age, I had to look at him and go, okay, that free spirit and a little bit of compassion is great, but he now needs to be capable of being dominant and strong, and know what it's like to defend. And so I put him in boxing because I knew, like, as a dad, I can say one thing and you're going to want to do the opposite. But if a coach tells you to do the same damn thing, you're going to do it.
Totally different.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So for him, he, got into boxing, and he got into boxing primarily just to make me happy at first, but then he fell in love with it. And that was because I knew him well enough to know that he's one of those kids that he's going to want to be independent, but he likes being part of a team at the same time. And boxing is very much like that, where you have a team that you train with, but then the end result is all on you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I father him. I let him be very independent, but I put up the guardrails, and then I'm just, I'm trying to make sure that, he's a mature, capable man that's respectful. So
Mo?
I
that's how I father.
love when you're speaking about raising your kids, how you discuss raising a woman and raising a man. I think nowadays people, and it's probably been happening for a while, raise kids and they forget that you're not raising a kid, you're raising a man. You're raising him to be who he's going to be. And I refer to a man because I have a son. And I just think
Yeah.
that is chef's kiss. I love it. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, Mo, your son, if he wasn't as small as he is, I would have thought he was a full grown adult. Like, that kid is so smart, so respectful. He is
Yeah.
like a full gentleman. I was just like, is this a midget around here? What's going on? Like, he is so smart.
40-year-old
Thank
man in an
you.
8-year-old body. Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
From the
I
time
agree.
I had him, though, that was the mindset. Like you said, like
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I was instilling raising a man, especially as being a mom. We can get wrapped in our boys' faces and just be like, oh, he's so cute, he's so this, and forget that he won't be that forever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I actually like that you mentioned that. I think that's an important piece. Obviously, I get to take the, you're interviewing me here, so I get to give my perspective on being a father. But I also would look at my partner, right, at that time, my ex-wife, and say, what is she bringing to the table? What is she going to teach these kids?
Yeah.
And then I focus on those things that let her focus on the things she's good at. I'm going to focus on the things that I know I can be good at.
Very
And
good.
also, you know what? Now I'm also very blessed that I have Maria, and Maria acts as a stepmom to Mateo, and she teaches him different things, and we live together, so makes sense that would happen. But she didn't have to do that either, and so my son will get the benefit of having two moms, right? Just as
Mhm.
much as I had the benefit of having two dads and two stepmoms. So
Awesome.
I'm gonna table that. But a couple things. One, to your point, I love the way, and this is what I'm talking about, authentic. Joe, you can't control the way your face looks, the way it lights up when you talk about your children and raising them. Again, whether it's being recorded on an interview or you just talk to his face changes when he talks about them, no matter what it is, good and bad.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? And again, I think that's how all parents should be. Mo, you do the same thing, which is a positive. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing I heard in there, and Joe, correct me, and then we'll end it. But again, it's your ex-wife now. I understand that, but still, it's like still parenting, right? It's not a knock. It's like, there's nothing there from that. It's still the mother of your children, right? And you
Yeah.
raise these children together. So giving credit where credit is due. And then again, I love the way you said it. Let her do what she does well, and then I'll step in with what I do. Again, you just say these things, brother, and you might not even think of it the way I'm thinking of it, but when I hear it from, it's not a common occurrence when you hear a man talk that way.
No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, and look, again, I think we started this podcast with me saying and talking about, like, you can't focus on the things you can't control.
Yeah.
And so at the end of
Yeah.
the day, even if I was to sit here, and I'm not going to, because I really don't have anything to say bad about my ex. At the end of the day, if there's something I don't agree with that she chooses to parent my child or children on, I can't control that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I'm not gonna, if she makes a decision that I don't really agree with or disagree with, for me, it's not, there's wasted time and energy to even try to focus on that. So I'm gonna let her do the parenting that she can and she's capable of doing. And for better, for worse, for whatever it is, my children will make the decision on how they feel about that. And it could be years down the line,
For
because
sure.
and I think that realization came from myself when I was going through my divorce. I had a different perspective of my dad. And I was like, wow, like I used to
Yeah.
think all these
Yeah.
different things about my dad, and
Yeah.
maybe some of that was 100% true, but how much of
Mhm.
that was kind of input by my mom or by my
Mhm.
stepdad, or, and I'm not saying they said anything bad or whatever,
I
like
get what you're
of
saying.
course they did, but you know, what I'm saying is my perspective of who my dad was when I was a kid with step parents and not mature enough to understand, even up until a year or two before my divorce, like I looked at my dad as a little bit of a, you know, a different person. And then when I got divorced, I was like, wow, isn't this
Mhm.
full circle? Like now
I
I
get it.
have perspective of what it's like to be the father of a divorce. And, you know, some things are said bad about me. Again, I can't control that. I can just be the parent that I'm going to be, and my kids will make the decision. And if they don't agree with it right now, fine. They might agree with it 10 years down the road. I don't know, you
For
know?
sure.
Well said, brother. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I have nothing else. Joe, every time I talk to you, I feel this way, but I appreciate you and your
Thank you.
insights and the things you say. I mean, I'm blessed. So I'm blessed to have you in my life, and I appreciate you being on here. Mo, anything?
Just again, thank you for sharing your story, your street tale with us. Thank you for sharing the leading with the vulnerability piece, because I think that is
Yeah.
just absolutely amazing. So thank you.
Well, thank you both. I think you guys probably get compliments on this, but as somebody who's been on the other side of law enforcement, I think what's amazing is what you guys are doing and giving people, you know, a voice. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think this is like a true valuable thing that's kind of forgotten in our society, that the people who are there to protect us are also there to help mend things. And I think that's what you guys are doing. I think you guys are being a bridge of two different sides of law enforcement and individuals who might have done harm or done wrong and have corrected course. And also, you know, just showing people that there's two sides to every story, and there's also a place for all of us to be a melting pot, you know, to come out of it together. So thank you both.
Sure.
Thanks, brother. He was not paid to say that.
I wasn't.
Thanks, bro. All right, guys. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah.